Hi, I'm Gabriel with Anycamp. The story begins when a group of students who are summoned to another world to save a kingdom, and they all have checked abilities, like being holy swordsmen, until they can use holy magic. There are protagonist named Muse Sushi, who is not a student, was also summoned, but he only has one special ability, and it is about being able to use an online store, a completely useless ability in combat. Moments later, they go with the king, who is a fat man, and instruct them to protect the kingdom of the demon king, or a protagonist, since he cannot fight. Ended up convincing the king that he would not participate as they forcibly summoned him. They gave him 20 gold coins as compensation, which is a considerable amount after doing some shopping in the town. He ended up in an inn and tried his online store ability, but apparently it is not a useless ability since he has access to unlimited items from his world. But since nothing in life is free, he have to pay for them as well, which is not as unlimited as we say. Although that does not mean that it is not a very useful ability. Sometime later, Mukida decides to go to another kingdom, and on the way, he ends up talking with a merchant, and realizes that his secondary ability to save objects and value is already special, and that only heroes and very few people have them. So he plans to keep them hidden, so as not to stand out. He also finds out that the country where he left would close its orders soon to start a war, so it is not safe to stay in the big cities. When he arrives in the city and he talks to some adventurers, he decides to leave that country too, and for that, he hires a group of adventurers to protect him on the road for 8 gold coins to finish convincing them. He proposes to cook meals on the road since he is good at cooking, and he has an online store at his disposal. Along the way, our protagonist starts to cook food, and for that, he buys a stove in his online shop since the ones in this world are refilling. The adventurer is delighted with the cooking skills of Mukuda. Then they were more motivated than ever, and they easily finished off the monsters at the end. They ended up getting a lot of meat and items that they can sell and not waste so much. Mukuda proposed to keep it in his inventory, but at nightfall, they were like jackals, eager for the next meal. When he serves the food to everyone, he realizes that his food temporarily increases the power of the adventurers when consuming it, but he decides to keep it a secret because if they find out, people could end up as a slave. And while they were eating, a beast was watching them, and days later, when he was preparing the bow meat, perhaps he dreamed of objects from his online store. But when everyone was enjoying the food, this cheeky beast known as Fen ended up appearing. He ordered him to give him the food, and the adventurers, as they are not stupid, resisted. Fenry was not satisfied and demanded more food, and since they no longer hadn't, he told him that he would make more and waited. And apparently Rai is quite reasonable, so our protagonist ended up giving him steaks non-stop until he satiated his hunger as Fenry. Our portal decided to make a contract with him to make him familiar, and normally it would be the other way around, but Fenry technically forced him to make a contract with him. The reason was for him to feed him daily the next day when they advanced, and it was time for food to feed him. He was not going to do anything simple, but very cute. He gained confidence and faith, which was quite reasonable, so he sent him to hunt his own food so that he could prepare it for him, and apparently he hunted best. Very powerful is that. Not even the group of adventurers could help them to clear the GTA beasts. They were entrusted to the adventurers in exchange for the valuable parts of the beast. Since Abel did not care, he only wanted the meat already with the meat. Our protagonist is already more confident with faith, and he made the adventurers eat first since he eats too much, and probably would not leave them anything later. When they arrived in the kingdom, there was a whole scandal because of him, since in the past, an Iron Man destroyed the whole country. But in the end, Mukuda began to let the soldiers, and by showing that he had a contract with Faith. He also threatened Fenry by leaving him without eating and causing problems. When they entered the city, he plans to do business as a street vendor, so the adventurer suggests that he enter the merchant guild, so as not to have problems at the entrance of the cities, and 2 adventurers to sell the valuable parts of the beast. They can be found on the way. Aku ran into the subject of someone who kept pestering him to invite him to his master's farm since he had become famous because of him. The guy insisted so much. That was the term driving him away since they were only interested in his power. The adventurers were a bit worried about that since the nobles might do something for that humiliation. But Abel was not worried because they couldn't against him, since the only one capable of equaling his power is an ancient dragon, which by the way, he faced 400 years ago. When the adventurers finished the job, job. They ended up saying goodbye to Snot, and he is going to enroll in the Merchant Guild. So the receptionist treated him well and explained everything so he could enroll. So keep up to date. The next one came with products from his online store to sell, but the products seemed to be of very good quality in this world. So he ended up negotiating with the guild master, who was super interested in buying the salt and pepper that he brought them when they were negotiating. The guild master offered him 14 gold coins for all Mukuta. He was surprised because it was super cheap for him in the online store, and the master literally offered him the weight in gold in the end, just for making a fool's face. He ended up giving him 17 MDA gold coins when he went to register at the Adventurous Guild. Unlike the Merchants Guild, they did not take very good care of him, and they did not even explain anything to him until he insisted on explaining to him how now MDA is already enrolled in the Adventurous Guild with the lowest rank. It needs to be at least one mission a month to not lose the license, so he would take a mission of his rank, but not without first feeding Fendery. And meanwhile, he ate his surprise to see his stats since he was rejected, and he wasn't even at his maximum level yet. When Mukuta went to collect the plants as already, if they had no meat left, he sent Apple to hunt. Mukuta ended up exaggeratedly fast thanks to his ability to assess, so he prepared the food for when he returned to Fenri, and when he returned as he liked it so much, the monster bird that he prepared for him brought another one. Our protagonist this time did not give him meat with spaghetti, and despite not approaching him, he loved it. After eating, they went to bring other beasts that he had happily married, which were all cheetah beasts. While he was guarding the beasts, he realized that there were orcs, and Sam Cooper gave him something to eat, since they did not seem edible, but apparently humans have been eating them for a long time. Back in the village, Mukuta went to the guild to deliver the flowers. He also wanted to sell the beasts that Fenri had married. Apparently the receptionist Fenri in love with Faith when Mukuta showed all the merchandise. He proposed to sell him the valuable parts of the monsters, and he would keep all the carn to feed his glutton to begin with. Fenri asked for the meat of an orc to eat that day, forgetting the fact that it was meat. He began to prepare the meat, and when he finished cooking it, Fen loved it and reminded him that the meat was from an orc, but when he tasted it, he realized that it was very good and looked like luxury pork. The next day when they went to collect all the meat, the guy gave him more than 200 boron coins for the pieces he sold him. Apparently he gave him a lot because the monsters were of the highest ranks, and their pieces were very valuable. Some of them even brought magic stones. Finally, the guy asked our protagonist if he really was a fennel or a giant wolf, and in order not to scare people, Mukuta would start saying that Phil was a giant wolf. Later they ended up leaving the city, and when it was time for lunch, thanks to F, they got a fortune. They would order prepared food from his online store, and when it seemed that it was going to rain, those who couldn't wait to eat that food were happy. Abel ended up loving the food from another world, and as a main dish, Fenri up preparing premium steaks from the online store. Although Abel thought it was not much because they were such small steaks, when he tasted them, he was fascinated with their flavor, and when MDA tells him that the cattle for that meat have been raised with care to improve its flavor, he is impressed that they take care of the animals and then consume them, since in this world, there are so many beasts that it is only to go and hunt them, or at least for him, since he doesn't have trouble hunting beasts. Phil ended up eating quite a few steaks, and he felt energized so much that he felt capable of killing the dragon he faced. Long ago, Mukuta was impressed and decided to watch his stat, and it turns out that consuming those steaks had temporarily increased by 50% angel power. It seemed a waste to him to stay still, so he decided to go. He went hunting beasts, and so that Mukuta wouldn't be in danger, he covered him with a magical barrier when he went, and Mukuta went to sleep. The end. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new anime recaps.